Ambassador Rokas, first of all, welcome to Canal, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Recent public opinion polls show a very high percentage of Macedonians, 70%, support EU membership, but only 11% support the constitutional amendments, and a very high proportion of them support a changing of the negotiating framework. How do you view this gap, and is it possible to find some kind of a solution? Because we are at an impasse for the 4th year in a row.
First of all, thank you very much for this invitation. I want first to make a comment about this significant opinion poll. It's significant because the findings, I find them personally very encouraging. Not only that there is support for joining the EU above 70%, but if you see some qualitative elements, you would see that the youth made the jump of 20% from 60% support a year ago to 80% support, which is quite significant. But also, I see that there is a narrowing of gap between party affiliations and ethnic groups. So this is significant. It means that the citizens of the country, they want to see the future of the country in the EU. But I hear you well.
There is a gap.
There is a gap, yes. And this is also for us. So opinion polls, professional opinion polls like that are very important for us as institutions, but for the government, for taking the right decisions, opposition, all walks of life. Now, there is a way forward. And your viewers, I'm sure they have heard it before. The EU position is very clear. It has already adopted a negotiating framework and Council conclusions unanimously, all member states, in 2022. So, if these commitments are fulfilled, the EU is ready to start negotiating very fast. We are ready for that, and I think we should not wait any longer. We need to do this critical step to move forward.
Yes, but if Macedonia does implement the constitutional changes and it faces another blockade from Bulgaria, what will it mean, not just for us, but for the credibility of the European Union itself?
Again, you put the point which it has our full attention and our full understanding. North Macedonia has waited for very long, and it is also, as the opinion polls suggest, there has been quite a lot of frustration in this process. But on the other hand, we have also to understand that we are facing a completely different world, where the EU enlargement, it is a true priority, and it is one of the solutions in the challenges of today's world. It is an investment to our security, prosperity, safety, well-being. And in this process, the Western Balkans and North Macedonia are 100% part of it. I had the honor to welcome all EU leadership in the last year, a couple of times, and they had the same consistent message. The door of the European Union is wide open, and North Macedonia belongs to the European Union. So now it is a moment to see the challenges, be pragmatic, and find a solution for the way forward. And actually, the EU leaders have offered to support any engagement, constructive engagement, trust building between Skopje and Sofia.
You've mentioned engagement. Are there any initiatives from the European Union to reopen the issue and for dialogue between Skopje and Sofia? There was a mention like that from the President of the European Council, Costa. Are there any initiatives like that? Well,
we have to build firstly on the bilateral engagement of the two countries. And a very good case in point is Corridor 8. Last fall, we had the joint ceremony and signature of the development of the tunnel, cross-border tunnel, rail tunnel, and this was an area where there was mutual interest and mutual benefit. We have to build on that, and I have to say that this significant event, which was assisted by the two deputy prime ministers, it was welcomed by all EU leadership. So we are there, to support any future positive initiatives that are coming, ideas.
I asked you because Prime Minister Mickoski recently said that there will be no constitutional changes without two conditions. For Bulgaria to respect the rights of Macedonians in Bulgaria and for guarantees. Do you have an understanding for those positions as a European Union?
I always have a tremendous respect to the positions of the Prime Minister. But the EU has a position. Yeah. And this position is quite clear. I don't want to repeat it, and I think, as I said, your viewers know. The issue is now that we need also to understand in what world we are all living. And I will mention that again because it is, we are in a geostrategic upheaval. We are in an era of unpredictability. We are in an era where trust is in deficit. And for this country, who has been the most credible and trusted partner throughout the years, despite the frustrations? The European Union. We were there, and now it is the moment that the European Union, and I think the Western Balkans, Europe as a whole, needs to have a collective answers to the fundamental challenges that they are put to it, whether security, prosperity, IT, competitiveness, all that. And already we see it with our initiatives. President von der Leyen was recently here and announced an AI investment here. We also open our internal market for the first time. These are things that they did not exist for previous candidate countries that they became members of the EU. So things are changing dramatically. We have a position and we need to find a swift way forward.
What creates a certain frustration among Macedonian citizens is the case of Ukraine and Moldova. For both countries, at least one member state is against them joining, but the European Union is trying to find a solution to that obstacle. Why don't we see such dedication in our case?
Again, I would not agree with you because the EU leaders, as I said, that I had the honor to welcome, they all came here and they showed all the possible support to the integration.
But you understand that it's a general opinion that the European Union is actively engaging for them to join, and there's a...
Okay, but then for your viewers, I get your point, but also for your viewers, we need to also understand that the war against Ukraine, it is an existential issue for the European Union. And obviously now, there are shifts every day. We need to see, first of all, if there's going to be a peace agreement, what are going to be the security guarantees, because we need to get the answer to this terrible war which our Ukrainian fellow citizens, they suffer every day. It's not just a just solution, a solution that will preserve Europe's safety and security for the future. Therefore, it is an attention there, but it is not to the detriment, because to the detriment of the Western Balkans. Why? Because the accession process is always a merit-based, and we are not going to cut corners. However, if there is a peace agreement, and if part of these security guarantees is EU accession, we need to find ways to accelerate this process, but no one is going to be left behind.
In addition to the constitutional amendments, Macedonia has its obligation on the path to membership defined by the reform agenda. How satisfied are you by the fulfillment of those requirements? The government and the opposition have different opinions about it.
Well, in order to be ready to start negotiations, there are three conditions that they need to be fulfilled. It means two roadmaps, one on the rule of law, one on the public administration. The public administration roadmap is ready. And the action plan on communities, see minorities. For that, we had a first public consultation back in December. It was a document that there was a lot of work put by North Macedonia, but also with the support of the Council of Europe. There were several amendments, positions that they were presented. This is going to be followed by new rounds. It is important that these suggestions are taken on board. So once we complete these three documents, we will be ready to start negotiations. I'll make it quite simple for your viewers to understand. But then also we have the reforms and the reform agenda. It is true in our yearly report that we saw somewhat a stagnation.
Stagnation of the rule of law. I was going to ask this.
Yes, but also in the reforms. However, again, there is a new pace, there is a new impetus, there is new momentum. I see that after the municipal elections, there is enhanced work on all the points of the reform agenda. We have received now the proposal by the deadline imposed. Of course, it's assessed now in the European Commission, but I am hopeful that all these three areas that I mentioned and the need to move forward, that there is now quite a lot of activity. I hope also the quality is there, so will allow us to move forward.
You've mentioned the stagnation in the rule of law noted in the progress report. One of the most criticized things was the scandalous amendments to the criminal code done in 2023. New amendments were adopted last week. Has the damage been repaired?
Well, not yet. Because the amendments to the Criminal Code 2023 was a big blow to the rule of law and to the fight against corruption. Let's be honest about it. So, a lot of work needs to be done. It is true that many laws are now in the process of being presented. We saw that on the Criminal Code, there were some amendments that were put forward by members of parliament, but because they were put by members of parliament, they were not assessed by the European Commission, so these are going to be assessed. But what we need absolutely, and this should be a top priority, is a comprehensive, strong criminal code, new law.
The reform agenda also envisages an increase in the budget for the judiciary and the prosecution, but the government believes that they do not deserve it and has announced that they will open a dialogue with Brussels to convince you to correct the percentages. What is the position on this issue? Is there a standard that applies to everyone? Prime Minister Mickoski has referred to some analysis made by the Council of Europe, according to which more is allocated than in some member states. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, from our side, what we say, it is that North Macedonia needs to fulfill the financial support to the judiciary as it is enshrined in its own constitution. Because it is in the constitution, in the laws of the country. And it is very significant because we all know that there is a significant lack of judges, of supporting staff. At this moment, I think the statistic is 70% of judges, so 30 empty positions, and 60 for supporting staff. But also there is the equipment, it is the rooms, it is laboratories for the public prosecutor's office. The situation is quite dire. And then again, we have the Academy for judges and prosecutors as the sole area for recruiting, for retirements, for filling the gaps, and there is no budget for the training. Therefore, if we want to secure the efficiency of the judiciary, it is important that the budget that it is foreseen in the Constitution, it is there to support that, and only when the justice system has judges, equipment, supporting staff, IT, digital systems, it contributes, it can make it more efficient, and this is what the citizens of this country want.
How do you generally assess the fight against corruption in this country? Do you see any progress after the change of the government?
Well, again, the one is linked to what I just discussed, so this big blow. Yes. Opinion, obviously, this is also, there are signs that things are moving ahead, because we need, on the one hand, we need the right laws, and there are many that they need to be implemented with regard to the judiciary. But also, I participated a couple of days ago to the inaugural session of the National Council on the Financial Investigations and Asset Confiscation. Yeah. I heard the speeches from the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, various ministers. They are all in the right direction. I also had a meeting 2 days ago with the new president of the State Commission on on preventing corruption. That was also very encouraging. I mean, it means that there is a very good work plan, a good agenda, but obviously we need to wait and see the results.
The main headlines in Macedonia for the past week were about the blockades by the transporters at the border crossings. The European Union has changed their status, but the solution is still being sought. Do you expect there to be any relief for the transporters by April, and will there be a concrete plan, since the announcement was search for pragmatic solutions?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, just a small footnote. There's no real change of the rules, just the system. The rules are the same, especially 90-day stays in a 180 period. However, what it changes is that the system becomes digitized, and this is for obvious reasons of security and safety, and I think nobody can argue against it. That said, this is an important problem, and it has our full attention. Yesterday it was organized a meeting with various ministers of all the Western Balkan countries and the EU Commission. They have agreed to form a working group and go through the possibilities. It is true that the time is pressing. We need the member states on board, because don't forget that this is an EU law. So we need to be conscious about that, but there is all the goodwill in the world to find a solution. And also, I'm encouraged that the new visa strategy recognizes the profession of professional hauliers as people who should be part of or exempt from these rules. So I'm sure until this new visa strategy takes place, with the working group and the continuous engagement that we have, we will find a satisfactory solution.
And for the end, one of the things that our country is constantly being praised for in all progress reports is the alignment with the European Union's foreign policy, but we also have a strategic agreement with the United States. There are tensions between the two, between the EU and the US, about the war in Ukraine, also over Greenland. Where and how do you think candidate countries, especially candidate countries like Macedonia, should position themselves in foreign policy?
Well, I want also to take this opportunity to praise the same 100% alignment of the country. This is a condition for candidate countries. It's an important condition, all the more in the times that we are all living now. So therefore, this engagement is very significant, and we appreciate it greatly, but also we are expecting it. That said, the United States is a strategic partner of North Macedonia, but we are not in competition. But also, the strategic partnership with the United States, it is not the same like the condition, the obligation that the country undertakes in order to become a member of the European Union. So we should not compare. That said, it is very significant to understand what is behind this alignment. It is the core values of the European Union, which is sovereignty, territorial integrity, inviolability of frontiers, all the more if we are talking about members of the same alliance like NATO. And I think it is, because you mentioned Greenland, it's particularly significant also for this country, because actually these values, they are not only the ones that they shape the EU, the European Union, but also the UN and multilateralism. And I think it is the protection, the best protection for any smaller country that has nothing else than these treaties and this security that brings either treaties with partners and allies or the European Union or the UN. So I think that's why we saw a very robust position from the European Union. I'm glad that the issue of Greenland, it is as it is now, but the worst was averted. But this debate is very significant, and therefore we are looking forward to continue working very closely with North Macedonia in this field.
Euroambassador, thank you for this interview.
Thank you very much for having me here.